My name is Angela.
My name is Nicole.
And welcome to the Ominous Stitch podcast. Hello, Stitchers.
Hola. Did I throw you off again?
Yes, you did. Welcome to another amazing episode of the Ominous Stitch podcast.
Welcome.
When I listen to myself on the podcast, I'm like, wow, I talk so fast.
Do you really?
I don't know.
I talk fast too, so I don't
Sometimes
notice.
I talk really fast. And I'm like, how am I talking that fast? And I don't understand what I'm saying. I'm
It's
like,
called
oh,
caffeine, everybody.
Oh, yeah, it is definitely called caffeine. I was teaching a lesson the other day, and about halfway through the lesson, my coffee like totally kicked in, and I was just like, "Wah!" and was flying off the walls. And she was looking at me like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, I get a lot of energy when I'm teaching because I'm breathing correctly, and I'm breathing correctly. I'm channeling my energy correctly, and so that really feeds energy for me. Plus, I'm doing something that like I know I'm really good at.
And it feels good.
And then by the end of the lesson, I'm just like, whoa, and I'm so amped. But then I also had coffee.
Do you crash too, though? Because that's what happens for me.
Hours afterwards, yes, I'll crash.
You go boop, boom.
Yeah.
That's how I feel after I podcast.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I'll get home and I'm
you're
like,
I'm so
exhausted.
tired.
Yes. You guys, this takes a lot out of us.
It does. We're two old ladies trying to do a podcast here. Oh, Nicole.
But we love it.
We do. So, Nicole, what has you in stitches?
Okay, you know what? This is the cutest story ever, and I'm going to post a picture eventually. So this weekend, I texted Miss Angela here. I was like, guess what my kids are learning to do? And they're obsessed with it.
It's so sweet. I got so happy. I was like, yay!
So they're learning how to crochet, and they can't stop every day now. They're like, can we crochet?
Because it's a fidget toy.
Yes.
It's the original fidget toy, which I think is really great for your youngest one because he needs to focus. And so this helps.
And he's like, I want you to teach me. I'm like, I'll teach you, but I want you to watch these YouTube videos first. Mm-hmm. And thank the Lord they're there. Like, I forgot exactly. I'll give you a shout out later. But there's this one website where it's just our YouTube video channel that has like kids beginner YouTube for crocheting.
Awesome.
Yeah, so they learned how to do their slip knot, and my youngest calls it zip knot.
Oh, that's so cute.
You keep saying that. I'm like, no, it's slip knot.
It's a zip knot.
So they were so proud of themselves that my youngest had to put it on a plaque and title it.
Oh my gosh.
So he created his first chain. And
that's so cute. Look how happy he is. That's the biggest grin I've ever seen on him.
He's so happy.
Oh, I love it. He's so proud.
Yeah. So later on, we're going to actually go to Michael's or Joanne Fabrics. I don't know. They want their own hooks. They want their own yarn.
I love it.
Yes. It's adorable.
Oh.
So it just makes my heart happy that they're like not watching screens or playing video games. They want to crochet.
Oh,
isn't it weird?
That's awesome.
Like, okay.
No, that's awesome.
Kudos.
We can add them to our workforce.
Yeah. They'll be our
This is how you make a beanie.
Our child labor.
I love it.
They want to, though. They keep asking, like, when are we going to have our shop? Because they want us to help sell.
Yeah.
They're like,
do you guys want to shop from the Ominous Stitch podcast?
Yeah.
We want to make one. So we'll just be on the lookout
let us
for
know.
that.
Like if you have things that you're like, oh, I really want this crocheted, like we're on it.
Yeah, let us know if there's something that you really want. We take requests.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
So we'll do that for you guys.
I love it.
One day we'll get it up. We'll get a shop going. We really want that. Both of us are so busy.
Yeah.
So busy.
Yeah.
So we'll get it. But anyway,
we're trying. Yes.
Yeah. So, but we have kids to help though.
No, I love it.
Your youngest likes to crochet.
My youngest
right?
loves to crochet.
Yeah.
So as soon as your boys start bringing hooks and yarn over, she'll show them how to make her little famous dot that she makes. So my youngest she only knows how to do a single crochet. She doesn't want to learn any other stitches. She figures this out on her own. She's like, I'm going to make my own pattern, Mom. And so she makes her own little patterns, and she makes these things we call dots. I don't know how she learned how to increase and decrease or what she did to figure out how to make these circles. but she makes
But she's doing
a
it.
circle, and then she stuffs it and then closes it and has like 2 little eyeballs on it. And that's her little dot.
So cute.
They're really cute. She makes them and gives them to her friends all the time. She made a really big one.
She gave me one.
She gave you one.
That's
yeah.
so sweet.
But she used all my stuffing, so I have no more stuffing to make anything else that I want to make that's amigurumi.
Big box of polyfill.
I do. Maybe I'll ask for that for Christmas. I need some polyfill.
Let's do it.
That'd be good. Yeah.
Okay, Angela, what's got you in stitches?
Okay, so little Miss Susie Homemaker here. I had my mother-in-law over to teach me how to make jam.
Because you got a farm.
I have a farm, and we froze a bunch of our fruit that we picked over the summer. So we made 23 half-pint jars of
Holy
apricot
cow.
jam.
All
and then
apricots.
we ran out of sugar, and so we had to stop. So I bought more sugar. So I still have some peach jam that I need to make and
yum.
raspberry jam I need to make.
I like raspberry jam.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm like, I'm making jam. It's
Look
so
at you
fun.
go.
And
You're
it's
being
so
old.
good. I know. I'm such a grandma.
I love it.
I'm a grandma with a 9-year-old. That's kind of funny.
Just say you're you got a farm. You've got an excuse. That's
Yeah,
totally okay.
Old Nick Angela had a farm. E-I-E-I-O. But no, it's really fun. I enjoy
I'm gonna
making
get a jam.
Yes, you are. I'm going to give you
jam.
some jam. And
I'm
it's
so
so
excited.
good. I had some on my waffles this morning. It was
Waffles.
really good.
I love
waffles.
it. Are you going to try any other fruit? Do you grow any other fruit that you could do that for?
Yeah, I was thinking of doing it with fig. Like a fig and apricot jam would be really tasty.
Okay.
But I already used all my apricots.
Dang
and so I'll get there. Ooh, and okay, another couple. I'm adding on to my thing because I guess my theme is farms. So we found another surprise squash plant. I have to show you. We grew a zucchini that is the size of my youngest's head.
Whoa.
So let me show you this zucchini. So here's the picture of the zucchini. It's bigger than her head. Look.
Dang, it's huge. Where'd you find that?
In the ravine. So we have this ravine, and it's like there was a short story that we read of this 1-acre farm, but the people thought they were buying like 100 acres, but it was really 1 acre with 100 acres underneath it or something, and it was water. Do you remember this story? You may have been in England when you were little and reading this, but if anybody remembers the name of the story, let me know. But the thing was like it was full of water, and then something happened and all the water just went away, but it was insanely fertile. So the second a seed hit the ground,
James and the Giant Peach?
monster, no, it's not James and the Giant Peach, but it's similar to that, but a monster plant would grow there. And so that's what I feel like is happening in the ravine. It's just so insanely fertile because of all the rain that we get. We just are growing random things.
I love it.
And so we grew this zucchini that we found. We were just in there cleaning out some of the other plants that are growing in there and weeds and stuff. And we were like, oh, look at this zucchini. And we found, I think it's a cantaloupe plant. So I think we're growing a cantaloupe.
They don't grow on trees?
No, they're melons. It's like a patch. Yeah.
I would be terrible on a
So
farm,
at first I thought it was a squash, but now it's starting to get the webbing on it like a cantaloupe.
That's cool.
And then I had a gardener here the other day, and he's like, oh yeah, that's cantaloupe.
Oh,
and
they're going to help.
cool.
Yeah, yay.
Yay. So I'm like, we're growing cantaloupe now.
You got so many types of fruits and veggies.
So
I
much
love
stuff. So it's exciting. Farm life is rad, man.
Farm life.
Oh man. So I'm excited for today.
You don't even know.
I have no idea what we're doing today. This has been a theme. I feel like you're keeping them from me, but
I think it's just more fun that way.
It's
like
way fun. It's a surprise. And
Yeah.
then my reactions are
Yes.
insane because I'm like, I don't know what
Because
this is.
they're genuine.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're always genuine because I know very little about a lot of things.
That's
so.
why I love this podcast.
I learned so much.
Yay! But you've got a cool stitch to show me that I found somewhere, I think, at one point. But
Okay,
you didn't even know.
this is a moment of kismet, but we'll talk about that when we get stitching. So should we get stitching?
Real quick, though?
Yes.
That word I'm using in my story time.
Kismet. Oh, what? See?
It's
this
scary.
is it. We're channeling each other. This is nuts. Okay.
It's because we haven't seen each other in so
I
long.
know. Okay.
All right.
Well, let's get stitching. Okay, so this week is a stitch that I talked about briefly before, because I think it was when I was doing the bag. I was doing the Lunda bag number 6.
Didn't you do this one though at one point though?
Well, sort of. So I did. I'm talking about the half herringbone. Or the half double herringbone crochet stitch.
But you've done
I've done a herringbone stitch before.
Oh, okay.
And it did use a half double crochet, but it was different and it makes a herringbone pattern.
Right.
This is the half double herringbone stitch.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So it's different. It's a half double crochet, but it's done just a little bit differently. That makes
to make a really nice
a really cool pattern.
Okay.
And I used this stitch on a blanket that I made for my daughter. This was the very first blanket that I made. And we may have shown an example of it when I was talking about baubles.
That's right.
But the herringbone that I used in the middle of it, or the half double crochet that I used in the middle of it, is all half double herringbone crochet. And I learned this stitch courtesy of, oh, hello, I'm in my microphone now. Oh, when you move your head. So I learned this stitch on, I learned this stitch on Daisy Farm Crafts, and they do a whole tutorial on the herringbone half double crochet on Daisy Farm Crafts. So you can go to daisyfarmcrafts.com, type in herringbone half double crochet. They probably have the video. I love that website. That was one of the first websites that I went to.
A lot.
Yeah. They have really beautiful, simple patterns, but I really like the color choices that they use that make it look really elegant.
I like that.
So yeah, Daisy Farm Crafts, they're really fun. So I recommend them. Okay. But the herringbone half double crochet is a lot like a regular half double crochet. So I'm going to show Nicole so she can see this.
Yes,
so she can visualize
I want to know. Okay.
So the Kismet part of this is I told her I was going to show her this stitch today, and she goes, there is a pattern that I want to do that called for that stitch, and I don't know what that stitch is.
And they explain it. And I'm like, I still don't understand. So I need her to show me.
And it's really funny because I had no idea that she wanted to learn this stitch.
Exactly.
And I'm just doing it today. And so, yeah, Kismet.
Yes,
and
Kismet.
There's the word that she's going to be using later on.
It's the magic word today, everybody.
That is. It's the magic word. Everybody scream, ah! Okay, so when you do a regular half double crochet, you yarn over, insert your hook into both loops, yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3.
Okay.
That's a regular half double crochet.
Right.
Yes. Okay. For the half double herringbone, the difference is this. Okay. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the loops, yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, but only momentarily because you're going to take that first loop and pull it through your first loop.
What?
So now you have 2 loops on your hook.
Why would you?
Then you yarn over and pull through all 2.
Interesting. So you kind of leave one alone. Like
so I'm going to show you again. You're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull that loop through the very first loop
so you
before you yarn over. No, you only have
now
2.
You have 2 because you took away that.
I took away the loop. So now I'm going to yarn over, and then pull through that through the second 2.
That's why it's half. Okay.
So that it makes it a half double crochet because you aren't yarning over and pulling through 2 loops, yarn over and 2 and 2. It's yarn over, pull through 1, then yarn over, pull through 2.
I got it.
So again, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and you're going to pull that loop through that very first loop. Then you have 2 loops on your hook, and then you yarn over and pull through those 2.
Easy. I could do that.
That's it. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, pull that loop through that first loop.
Just that first
2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2.
Got it.
That's the herringbone half double.
I could totally do that. Yeah. They explain it on paper, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Loop. Oh, do this loop, do this.
Yeah, you have to see it.
I'm a visual learner.
The difference is after you yarn over and bring it back through the stitch, you pull through that first loop. That's the main difference. And then you yarn over and pull through the remaining 2.
Got it.
Instead of yarning over and bringing it all the way through and then yarning over again to pull through all 3.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's it.
Cool, I can do that.
Simple stitch.
And it's so pretty.
It's very pretty. And it makes a really unique little herringbone pattern in your half double crochet. So it just adds that little bit of extra interest that looks a little bit different. And you're like, ooh, what is that stitch? It's just a half double. You're just pulling through sooner than what you normally do.
Right. So you just have to drop that one. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, now I know.
Yay. So
We'll demo it at some point. We got to get back on our YouTube. Sorry,
we
everybody.
do. We have to get back on our YouTube.
We'll get on there.
We will. We promise. Okay. I am so ready for story time.
This is going to be long and a doozy. I'm not going to split this up because I don't want to. We're going to have it in one episode.
Okay. So let's get cracking. It's story time.
My magic word. I knew it was kismet to discuss H.H. Holmes when I was watching the latest season of Loki. Has anybody seen Loki? Have you watched it?
I have not.
Oh, have you seen?
I love Loki, but I haven't watched. No, I haven't watched any of it.
All right. Well, they've just recently. Well, for you guys, it's probably weeks later. It was the season finale was awesome. So, but I was watching it. The third episode. Loki and Mobius are in Chicago 1893 when the World's Fair is happening. And they bring up H.H. Holmes. And I was like, cool, right?
Yeah.
So if he's mentioned on a famous Disney show, then you know H.H. Holmes is infamous in the U.S. for being one of the first serial killers.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
From his own autobiography, Holmes was quoted stating, "Yes, I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer.
Now the movie makes sense.
No more than a poet can help the inspiration to song, nor the ambition of an intellectual man to be great." So I have only one. There's like not very many photos of him. That's like one of two.
So he knew he was born evil. Oh, that's crazy.
That's what he thinks.
Okay.
He's this guy, man. Oh, slippery little.
Uh-oh.
So much
I'm going to
about
be
him.
so mad, huh?
Yes.
Don't make me care about him first.
No.
Okay.
So before we knew him as H.H. Holmes, he was born Herman Webster Mudgett, May 16th, 1861, in Gilmanton, New Hampshire. His father, Levi, was more of a farmer, but he was also a trader and house painter, and his mother was a stay-at-home mom. And her name was Theodate, I'm going to say.
Oh, interesting.
Theodate. His parents were known to be devout Methodists, and it is said he had a privileged childhood and was showing signs of unusual intelligence. That's what they use. That's fun. He was very smart. However, there were reports his father was a heavy drinker and abused his family. So he did have not the greatest household. Also, his father and others were a little disturbed by Herman because he never fully looked anyone in the eye, which caused a lot of anxiety in social settings. But they eventually found out he had a medical condition called strabismus, also known as hypertropia or crossed eyes, which basically his eyes were misaligned. Okay. This plus his super intelligence may have been why Herman was bullied as a kid. He had high anxiety issues, and the bullying on top of this made it worse. These older kids would get a kick out of telling Herman stories about the pharmacy or the doctor's office around the corner and how there were decaying bodies and strange things inside.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. One memorable incident, the boys dragged Herman into the doctor's office where they had rigged an anatomic human skeleton to scare him. They were even able to manipulate the skeleton's hands and put them on his face.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Even though the smile creeped him out, somehow the incident helped him overcome his worries, and he morbidly became intrigued and even obsessed with death and dead bodies. Yeah. He eventually took to dissecting live animals to really get a look into the anatomy and skeletal structures.
Oh, no.
And apparently he kept them alive as long as he could while cutting them open.
No.
Yeah. He was very medical about it, but at the same time, that's pretty grotesque.
Oh, no.
So as I mentioned, Herman was super intelligent to the point that he graduated in 1887 at the age of 16. He was also able to take on different jobs and even became a teacher at the age of 16.
What?
Yeah, back then you could do whatever you want, apparently. Soon, though, he fell in love with a girl named Clara A. Lovering, another 16-year-old. Some say Herman knew her in high school, but it's not 100% how they met. But he was smitten to the point that he saw her talking to another boy at church who seemed to like her as well. But as soon as he was alone, Herman threatened him.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. That next day, he told all his friends they were engaged.
Did he talk
16.
to her? Did he ask her?
Pretty sure.
Okay.
That'd be weird.
I'm like,
On July 4th, 1878, in Alton, New Hampshire, him and Clara wed in secret since they knew their parents wouldn't be happy about it.
uh-oh.
But just a few months later, they did find out. I mean, who can't? Because,
Right.
can't lie to your folks. And sure enough, they indeed thought they were too young. However, they couldn't change their minds. And so Clara's folks hooked Herman up with a job at the local grocery store since Clara's uncle owned it.
Oh, so was teaching not working out for him
I guess
anymore?
not.
Okay.
I don't know. So they're like, let's get a better job. I don't know how that's better. But anyway, for over a year, Clara still lived with their parents while they were married. And every weekend, Herman would walk over 9 miles to spend time with her.
Oh my gosh.
And then return every Monday morning back to his home. So you kids think you have it rough. You got to walk 9
miles to see my wife.
at 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
Strange. On February 3rd, 1880, they had their first baby, Robert Lovering Mudgett. Herman was able to become a certified public accountant at that point.
Oh, yay,
and served,
CPAs.
and served as a city manager of Orlando, Florida.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But Holmes' passion was in the medical field, so 19-year-old Herman enrolled in the University of Vermont in Burlington. Herman moved to a boarding home near the school. However, Clara still lived in her parents' home with the baby. Holmes had a roommate named Fred Ingalls, who was an upstanding kind of guy. And Herman told Fred he needed to keep his marriage under wraps.
What?
Shady.
That's very shady.
Yeah. But Fred, being the kind of guy he was, agreed to keep his secret only if he kept it in his pants and didn't try to date anyone in the boarding house or the university. Herman agreed, but Herman lived by Herman's rules. And somehow he was charming to the point he was known almost as a ladies' man. Isn't that weird? Gross.
Yeah.
He's married with a baby, dude. He started flirting with the landlady's daughter. And this really pissed Fred off. And so he went and told everyone Holmes was already taken and, in fact, married. And this caused a lot of tension between the two to the point they got into an actual fist fight over some mustache wax that Herman thought Fred took without asking. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So Fred ended up with the black eye. So he got pretty violent with him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Herman wasn't a huge fan of that school and thought he needed better instruction because, again, he's pretty high,
High intelligence.
yes.
Yeah.
So he hired a tutor and even set up his own chemistry lab in his room. And that wasn't all. His landlady was cleaning Herman's room one day and, to her surprise, discovered a completely intact and preserved cadaver of a baby under his bed.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Now, most likely the body was a medical specimen, but who exactly knows where and how he acquired it?
Oh, my gosh.
So he's doing some
This
crazy.
dude.
Yeah. He's very involved with looking at the anatomy
But, like,
to the point of taking bodies home.
dude, oh, wow. Okay. I like so many thoughts about Herman. Like, okay, well, first of all, how nice is it that your landlady comes and cleans your room? Oh, my gosh.
Right? At that
It's like
time.
your mother.
I'm guessing she gets kind of paid for it too. I don't know.
Yeah. And then, like, he's already not cool because, he left his wife and baby. And I understand you were 16 when you met her and then, ooh, the world. But, like, he was in Florida. He, like, bounced around a lot.
Everywhere. Yeah. On the East Coast.
He can't be settled. And,
Nope.
and
Exactly.
Mhm.
And it's all about him.
It's all about him. He
Yeah.
doesn't care about his wife and baby.
Nope.
He's like, I think, as a 16-year-old, he was like, ooh, I want to.
Got hormones.
Yeah,
We
I've got
get it.
hormones. Ugh.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, look what hormones land you. A baby. Let's pretend I'm not married at all. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So Herman, again, still wasn't happy with the university. And he also ran out of money. So he ended up back home after just like one semester there and found another teaching job to survive, although he didn't like it. And apparently he was so extremely rough on the students and used corporal punishment.
Oh, no.
Thankfully, the students were able to submit student evaluations. Hey.
Oh, yeah.
They were all terrible, and he was fired.
Good.
Yeah. 1882, Herman moved to Michigan with his wife and baby to attend.
So they're back.
They're back together to attend the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery. And Clara became a dressmaker. This was the first time Holmes' wife and baby were all living together at the age of 21. Oh, wow. But Holmes was quite bummed because he felt they were holding him back. And I feel like that's what happens when you get married that young, 17 years old. Come on.
Yeah, you start, you're laying down roots. They're going to hold you. Yep.
That's what happens. But Clara was financing his schooling, so he couldn't really object to them being there with him. And sadly, it was known that Herman and Clara fought constantly to the point he was physically abusing her. When Clara was out in public, she would be often spotted with a black eye. But she got fed up with Herman's abuse, good girl, and just him as a person. And she took Robert and left back to New Hampshire in 1884. At this point, Clara and Robert never had any more contact with Herman after this.
Good for them. Smart girl, Clara.
She left.
Oh.
That same year, 23-year-old Herman graduated from the University of Michigan Medical School. So he was really quick through everything.
Yeah.
Holmes seemed to be relieved at that point with Clara and Robert's departure. He then declared to all his classmates that he was going to go to Africa for medical charity work and even announced it in the local newspaper. But being the pathological liar he was, let's note that right now, he never did travel to Africa. Instead, he ended up going back to New Hampshire after graduation. Back here, this is where it all gets super shady, and he just throughout his whole life, he thought to make a buck off of the smallpox outbreak that happened in his town. So he'd go around offering smallpox vaccines from door to door after the outbreak, and then he was charging 25 cents, which is $6.50 today. That's not too much. No one was buying it, so then he decided to change his tactic and fool everyone into believing he was an official from the health board and told everyone it was mandatory to take it. And that worked.
Yeah.
He then used that money to create his own laboratory, to create his own patented medicine, but that fizzled out. He didn't have enough, and it just didn't work. In 1885, Herman racked up a staggering amount of debt. So he left to Pennsylvania, where he found a job as at a psychiatric hospital. And apparently he was still scamming people here as well. I don't know exactly what he was doing, but he was still making a buck off of not being very honest. Okay. And at this point, Herman began planning some even more crazy schemes because it delighted him to take money from others. So he and a college friend decided to dabble in insurance fraud.
Oh.
Herman's friend would take out a life insurance policy on his friend who had a wife and daughter. That's his partner in crime. Okay. Then Herman would scribble out a murder-suicide note and leave it next to the quote-unquote family's dead bodies. But really, they were medical cadavers. And then Herman would send his friend and family out of town. Herman then posed as a family member to collect that insurance money, and then he'd split it with this friend. Herman was able to supply the bodies by purchasing them from medical schools. And yes, at this point in history, bodies could easily come and go in the name of science.
That's so
sad.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's insane.
But then, after researching about how insurance companies were looking for specific details about each of the family members, Herman realized he needed to find bodies that looked exactly like the family. So he ended up calling off the scheme. In May of 1886, Herman moved to Chicago, where he was infamously known in history. So there in Chicago, Herman became smitten with 24-year-old Myrta Z. Belknap. Not much is known about her and how they met. We do know she was a clerk in a music store. Herman proposed to Myrta, and she agreed. However, remember how Herman's still married to Clara.
Right.
Yeah, he never took care of that. So Herman still ended up marrying Myrta, but in an unofficial ceremony. And since the state of Illinois didn't know anything, he now had two wives. And supposedly Myrta never even knew he was previously married.
Well, I'm sure he's not going to tell her.
No.
And nobody knows him.
Nobody knows him. And this is the birth of H.H.Holmes, Herman Howard, because he needed to drop his Mudgett name.
Oh.
So that's his new name. Now, Holmes tried to file for divorce from Clara, claiming infidelity on her.
Oh, gosh.
And also that he cared for Robert for the last few years, so he didn't have to pay child support. But the divorce proceedings never went through. And because he changed his name, he was like, okay, whatever, we're good to go. So he's still married to two people with the changed name.
Dude.
Soon, Holmes found a job as a manager of a local drugstore, and in his mind, he wanted to own the store eventually. So in order to buy it at a fraction of the price it was worth, Holmes schemed to steal items from the store. Summer of 1886, more and more products would go missing, and soon the couple who owned the store had to sell it because they were going broke. His corrupt plan worked, and he bought the pharmacy for a fraction of what it was worth. Then, to make matters worse, Holmes refused to pay what he owed the couple. The previous owners threatened to file a lawsuit against Holmes, which then forced him to finally pay up. But he was really like, I'm not going to pay you. What can you do?
What a jerk, dude.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a jerk.
Story
we know
of his
that,
life.
Yeah.
It just gets worse. The following year, Holmes saved up enough money to purchase the plot of land across the street from the current pharmacy on 63rd Street. To avoid any future problems and being the weasel he was, he first listed Myrta as the owner of the property, but then later changed it to Myrta's mother, Lucy. So property is under her. Okay. Architects drew up a 2-story plan with a drugstore on the bottom. He was going to move that pharmacy across the street, and the second story was to be apartments. The blueprints Holmes had in mind had some unusual plans, though. There was a secret room that you can enter from the rear of the drugstore, as well as a hidden staircase that held its entrance behind a trap door in a bathroom on the second floor.
Yeah.
Not shady.
Not shady at all. No.
Eventually, a third floor was added, but I'm going to discuss this later.
Okay.
Eventually, people knew this building as the Murder Castle.
Oh my gosh.
So if you ever hear that, we're referring to that building.
Murder Castle.
By the end of 1887, Holmes began construction of his building, but was still doing some shady things for it. For example, he decided to buy an enormous safe on credit, but had it placed in the new building and had workers build the pharmacy around the safe. He then refused to pay for the vault, and the company said, well, I guess we're going to have to come repossess it. Holmes said, cool. But hey, if you damage any of my property trying to remove it, I'm going to sue you. So that safe company called his bluff, came down to his building that was still being worked on, and realized it would be impossible to remove this huge, heavy safe without having to knock down some walls.
Yeah.
So they were forced to leave it in Holmes' possession. Shady, shady, shady.
That's... I'm some shitty. Yes, I'm the real shit.
Exactly. Holmes also continued to ignore the debt and bills he was racking up, and he accrued 60 lawsuits over an 8-year span. But he basically threw his mother-in-law in the way of it all, since her name was on all the formal papers. And she was liable for the debt. But she didn't do anything. It was all at her, and she's like, I don't have anything to do with it. So they couldn't do anything at that time.
Oh, man.
And also, there wasn't much the creditors could do since he didn't, like I said, legally own the property. And he didn't have much to repossess because he either sold things off quickly that he was like on loan, on credit, right? Or he hid them, which I'll mention again soon. Yeah.
Okay.
Once the building was complete, the pharmacy was relocated to the first floor, and his employees started to notice weird things about Holmes. For instance, he would regularly tell housekeepers he was going out of town and would be out for the night. But that same night he was supposed to be gone, the housekeepers would run into him in the new building, and he'd come up with some random excuse as to why he was there. Weird. Also, the drugstore employees blatantly knew about the hidden room and secret compartments that was built inside the new building. They were very curious as to why, but they never really thought it was a huge enough deal to bring it up to Holmes. So they're like, yeah, there's a secret room back there, but we'll just ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah.
One time, Holmes asked an employee to walk into the large safe in the store, the one he swindled.
Mm-hmm.
But then as he was shutting the door on him to lock it, he asked his employee to scream as loud as he could. Upon its closure, Holmes observed that it was nearly soundproof.
Oh, man. That wouldn't send red flags, right?
Red flag.
Red flag warning. Red flag warning.
He did reopen the vault to let the employee out, but how scary would that have been?
Yeah, I would be like, no.
Is this for your murder? Yeah. What are you doing this for?
Yeah, I'd be like, and I quit. So
I'm done.
Yeah. Oh.
And even though the lawsuits kept on coming and against Myrta and her mom, because again, they're all listed on those legal documents.
Yep.
Myrta was oblivious of Holmes' shadiness
Oh.
and stayed married to him.
Myrta.
In 1889, when Holmes was 29 and Myrta was 28, they welcomed their first baby together, a daughter named Lucy, after Myrta's mother.
Oh, how sweet.
But Holmes's MO.
Yeah.
He was a serial bigamist and couldn't stay with just one gal. I mean, he's got
He's
two,
like, oh, she's got a baby now.
Yes.
I got to cut and run.
So he started cheating on Myrta soon after their baby was born with one of his employees, Julia Smith, the wife of Dr. Ned Connor, who worked at Holmes's pharmacy jewelry counter. Yeah, the couple lived on the second floor of his complex.
Oh my gosh.
Other tenants could hear the Connors bickering and fighting constantly in their apartment. And a year into their secret affair, Julia and her husband Ned split up. Ned moved out. But because Holmes loved to humiliate people, he soon found Ned. He chased him down and told him he'd been sleeping with Julia, even providing intimate details about her that no one else would have known.
Gross, dude.
Now, the theory was that this affinity for humility was created when he was humiliated by those bullies as a kid. So ever since then, he gets such a rush doing it to others.
Ugh.
But Holmes used Julia in his cons and schemes just like Myrta, and Julia still stuck with him until 1891.
That's so bad.
And both ladies still didn't know about each other.
How?
Because he's sneaky. Now things took a turn for the worse. December 1891. Julia was invited to her sister's wedding in Iowa, and this got Julia very excited. On Christmas Eve, Julia and her daughter Pearl, 6 years old, spent the evening with the Crows. They were neighbors in Holmes's apartment complex, and they recalled she was super happy to go visit her, and they were only going to stay for a week or two. On Christmas Day, the Crows left the building to visit friends. Later that evening, when they returned, they saw Julia and Pearl's apartment completely boarded up.
Uh-oh.
This is only a day.
Yeah.
When Holmes was notified, he seemed concerned and even went looking for them. But not long after their disappearance, Holmes began to show her apartment to rent with all of Julia's belongings still in there.
Dude, that's not sus at all. Come on.
Seriously. A lady that was looking at the apartment thought it was a little odd as there was still belongings on the floor and even a plate and a cup on the table.
Oh my gosh.
Holmes even tried to sell Julia's clothing to the new tenant, but she declined. After Christmas Eve of 1891, no one ever saw Julia or Pearl again.
Oh, Holmes.
At that time, Holmes would tell acquaintances that she had to leave unexpectedly to be with her dying sister. Later, he changed...
The one that was getting married?
Yeah, I don't know. Different one, maybe? No idea. Dying sister.
Uh-huh.
Later, he changed his story to Julia having to flee from Ned, her former husband. But years later, Holmes told somebody that he indeed killed her. But during interrogation years later, he said that he had gotten Julia pregnant, and I'm guessing he convinced her to get an abortion. At that time, abortions were very risky and had a high death rate. Also, Holmes had no experience with them, even though he loved to dissect and knew anatomy. So she most likely died on the operating table.
So he tried to perform the abortion?
Yes.
Oh, man. But what happened to Pearl?
So Pearl most likely died by Holmes's hands.
Yeah.
No one knows exactly how, but after investigating the so-called murder castle, they did find partial child skeleton in the cellar.
Oh, heartbreaking.
Now, the 19th century was full of people trying to discover cures for everything. I'm sure you know that, right?
Yeah, a bunch of snake oil salesmen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I have a feeling that our friend Mr. Holmes was one of those.
oh, of course he was.
Of course.
But yeah, I was like, remember in the Mammoth Caves when he like that doctor tried to put everybody
Oh,
down?
yeah.
That was in 1840.
The fresh air in the cave is going to solve your
It's gonna be okay.
tuberculosis.
Yeah. Yeah, so traditional medical practices relied on bloodletting, blistering, and high doses of mineral poisons. Smart. So when Holmes got wind of a vaccine that allegedly cured alcoholism,
Oh, no.
he wanted to create his own concoction.
Uh-huh.
In May of 1892, Holmes proposed his own treatment for alcoholism. He called it the Silver Ash Institute, based on the gold cure he heard about, but using silver instead. So yeah, this was obviously fake, but he was convincing. Now, he heard about the gold cure from a lady he hired from an employment agency named Emmeline Grand. Before working for Holmes, she had worked at the institute where the gold cure was administered. Emmeline was extremely charming, and he thought he could use her to manipulate customers. So, of course, he fell hard for her and wanted her.
Of course.
So once she started working for Holmes, he was constantly flirting with her, and then obviously got her. They started courting, and he had her live in various boarding houses because Holmes said he didn't want her to stay in one place longer than a week.
Because then his wife or the other wife or the girlfriend
or
would find
anybody,
out.
yeah. Holmes did indeed take advantage of her, borrowing tons of money from her or selling her phony shares, giving her forged documents. Yeah, Holmes also convinced her to use fake names and claim she was a relative of his. Holmes also moved Myrta and Lucy to the suburbs and only came home once or twice a week.
Oh, man.
Emmeline was very aware of Holmes's cons and antics, and she was perfectly fine with it. She also knew he was married, but Holmes convinced her he was going to leave his wife for her.
Of course.
Of course.
Oh, my gosh.
Sadly, he viewed Emmeline as an object, as all women, to help him get money, and that he knew he could control her.
Yeah.
Towards the end of 1892, Emmeline began telling everyone she was engaged, but she never said it was specifically Holmes. Usually it was a made-up name, but many suspected it was him. And just like that, she disappears.
Oh, no.
The last person to see her was Mrs. Lawrence, a friend Emmeline visited on December 6th. Emmeline tells Mrs. Lawrence that she's going back home to Lafayette, Indiana for a short stay. And she also knows about, Mrs. Lawrence knows about her relationship with Holmes. When Mrs. Lawrence started to worry about Emmeline's disappearance of a few days with no word from her, she reached out to Holmes. Holmes then tells Mrs. Lawrence she left to get married, which shocked her because she never knew of another partner.
Right. Oh, my gosh.
Mrs. Lawrence tries to question Holmes further. So he produces a stack of marriage announcement cards that state she was getting married to a Robert E. Phelps on December 7th. Remember, she visited Mrs. Lawrence December 6th?
Yeah.
Even Emmeline's folks received the wedding announcement in the mail.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And at that point, Holmes kind of like hid low, and he went to his wife Myrta for a few days. Mrs. Lawrence knew it was foul play, but she never reported him, and everyone else figured that they were having an affair, but he didn't outright murder her. Or did he? Yeah. The speculation again was that Holmes found out Emmeline was pregnant, so another botched abortion. The book Devil in the White City by Eric Larson claims Holmes skins Emmeline from the waist up, brings her out of his building in a trunk, and ships the trunk to an articulator who further processes the body and then sells her skeleton to medical science. It's hard to say, though, that this was exactly what happened because Holmes claimed he did a lot of things, but he was also a pathological liar.
Right.
Which, more on that again, but... So that book, a book I brought up, which I'll talk about again. It's like supposedly a nonfiction book about his life, but I think there's a lot of elaborations because Holmes said he did so much,
right?
But he didn't, and that's I'm going to get into that again. So,
okay.
At this point, Chicago was bustling as they prepared for the World's Fair in 1893, and that's when Holmes thought he wanted to set up a hotel for the occasion. Holmes borrowed as much money as possible to build a third floor to open the World's Fair Hotel.
Oh, okay.
But his plan was to take all the money he could from the investors and then never pay them back.
Of course.
Of course.
Why? If someone gives him money, that's it.
That's
it's
it,
his.
right?
He's not giving anybody else money.
Doesn't want to, yeah. During the beginning of construction by laborers he fired them 1 week later, stating he had cutbacks and never paid them. Then a few weeks later, he hired different laborers and
Of
repeats the
course.
situation.
Oh,
Lets them go, never pays them. So that's his kind of MO there.
yeah.
People were lending building and construction tools and materials to Holmes left and right. And finally, they started to realize they'd been scammed out of their money because he never paid them back. They swarmed Holmes's building to repossess their property, but they were shocked to find Holmes already sold most of the furnishings and hardware and then hid the rest again. Turns out on the third floor, Holmes had laborers build secret doors and compartments, and there he hid everything. And note, though, the press spun this to say these secret doors and compartments was where Holmes was about to conduct his murders and hide bodies, but that's not what authorities found later. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's just where he's hiding all the stuff that he
Yes.
stole from people.
exactly. The lawyers these lenders hired had to sift through piles and piles of paperwork, and after digging through it all, they'd found they couldn't find his name on anything.
Of course not.
Holmes technically didn't even own the building or any of the shell companies that were granted the loans. Everyone knew he was a complete fraud, yet legally, no one could do anything about it. Legally.
Yep.
So Holmes was also on to his new mistress,
Of course.
28-year-old Wilhelmina, or Minnie Williams, former actress who moved to Chicago to find a steady job that was away from the theater. Holmes said he met her at an employment office in Chicago. However, it is believed they actually met in Boston several years earlier when he posed as Harry Gordon. Holmes offered her to work at the hotel as his personal stenographer, and she accepted. Minnie was smitten with Holmes and claimed to friends and family that she was soon engaged to a wealthy doctor.
No.
However, she never
Minnie.
put his actual name in the letters she wrote or told people fake names. He then even pulled her into his cons and even conned her after he gained her trust. He manipulated her into transferring the deed of her property in Fort Worth, Texas, but to transfer it to one of his aliases, Alexander Bond.
Oh, Minnie, no.
Yeah,
no,
this
no.
was then transferred over to his friend Benjamin Petzel with the alias of Benton T. Lyman, and Petzel's going to be coming back.
Okay.
Holmes and Williams started posing as husband and wife, and they claimed they were Mr. and Mrs. Gordon. They moved into an apartment together in Lincoln Park, Chicago in June of 1893. Minnie's sister Nanny came to live with them at one point. Who knows how he was able to keep this under that table from Myrta again? But juggling two different families did stress him out.
Well, yeah. Okay.
At one point, yeah, he has two.
Makes
he's
sense.
living with them now. At one point, Minnie's sister wrote to her aunt that they were going to Europe with her brother Harry and not to worry about finances as he was going to take care of them. July 5th, 1893. Both Minnie and her sister Nanny were never seen again. During his confession to police later, Holmes said he stuffed Nanny's body into the trunk of a car and sunk it in Lake Michigan, but then retracted that statement. See, you can't get a good hold on him because he's constantly telling you different things.
Constantly lying.
Yep. On July 7th, debt collectors showed up to find Minnie since her name was on many documents at that point.
Right.
But the apartment was completely empty.
Yep. Because Minnie was dead.
Yep.
Ugh.
By the time the girls disappeared, the third floor apartments were completed. I do that in air quotes because they were in shambles.
Uh-oh.
Most of the rooms were missing furnishings. Some of the doors didn't even completely shut, and they were filthy. Holmes never advertised the lodgings, and there are no records of people staying in his hotel. My hunch is that if anyone ever did stay, it was under the table and dealt with in a shady way. But
Makes
that's
sense.
my
Yeah.
theory. The blueprints were insane, though, because, again, there were secret passageways, trick sliding doors, closets that could lead into each room. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Rumors were that there was a body chute that led straight to the furnace, but that has never been proven. So heads up, that's a big part. Like, people are like, oh, he's got a body chute. No, we don't think that's
part
actually
of the legend.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is his hotel. There is a picture of it. Finally, there we go.
Okay.
So it's huge.
Yeah. It is massive.
Yeah.
Oh, this is such a crazy story.
Mm-hmm. On top of all of this, the only person allowed access to the third floor was Holmes himself, as he kept an office up there which had an 8-foot safe lined with asbestos and an old large stove.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Holmes claimed he used it for experiments. However, after being arrested, they found unidentified women's jewelry and buttons in the stove.
Oh, Holmes. There's a crematorium.
So there's some stuff that we just don't know exactly, but at that time they didn't have enough,
they didn't forensic science
exactly
wasn't what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man.
August 1893. Holmes wanted to get rid of the hotel, even though the World's Fair would end in October, so a couple of months early.
Mm-hmm.
On August 13th, tenants on the second floor saw him lugging heavy trunks out of the building.
Uh-oh.
He was on his way to see Myrta and Lucy. But an hour later, tenants could smell burning tar and quickly realized the hotel was on fire. Firefighters were able to extinguish the fire with damage to the roof and the third floor only. And everything else was okay and no one was injured. Funny enough, Holmes took out multiple insurance policies on the building.
Of course he did, because he knew he was going to set it on fire.
No one knows exactly how many people he could have killed during that fire, or due to that fire. As I mentioned earlier, there were no records of anyone staying there. So I was thinking maybe he lit it because there could have been bodies, but we don't know. So definitely getting rid of incriminating evidence. Now, the insurance people soon investigated more and noticed all insurance policies were taken out under the alias of H.S. Campbell. And no one could give a personal statement under this name, so they ended up canceling all the policies he filed. For sure, knowing he was a complete fraud and trying to swindle insurance companies, Holmes ended up jumping from hotel to hotel to avoid the authorities. But Holmes,
this is so Catch Me If You Can.
Yes, but
right?
Worse.
But way worse. Because he was just a con artist. Yeah, this guy's
guy's
murderer.
killing people. Yeah. Holmes was able to evade them, and he made his way on to his next lady, Georgiana Yoke, a 24-year-old department store worker, and they may have met at the World's Fair.
Sorry,
that's okay.
My microphone.
Holmes told her his name was H.M. Howard and said he had changed his original name because his uncle wanted him to. His uncle left him property in Texas after passing away, and his uncle said he could only take it over if he changed his name to his uncle's name. I know. Lie upon lie. Oh, yeah. The property did exist, but it was formerly owned by deceased Minnie Williams.
Right. Yes.
In late November 1893, Holmes and Georgiana took a trip down to Texas without even telling Myrta. She's still in the picture. He lied to Georgiana and said they needed to go to Texas to claim that property his uncle left him. And before they arrived there, they ended up in Denver because he got married to Georgiana.
Oh my God.
Don't forget he's technically still married to two other women.
So this is wife number 3.
Yes.
Myrta must have, I think she's being smart because as soon as she gets involved in anything that her husband does, that's when he kills them. Yeah, that's when he kills them.
Maybe she knew that.
So maybe she's just like, I'm just going to ignore.
I'm going to be on my own world. You do what you need to.
And when he comes home, okay, but it's better when he's gone. Yeah.
It's not cool.
Oh, Myrta.
Yep.
Okay.
So they meet up with Benjamin Petezel. Remember that name?
Yeah.
That friend and shady con artist in Fort Worth. Just a reminder, Benjamin Petezel was able to forge some documents so that he could transfer the deed that Minnie had owned to Holmes. He was the one that helped. There they started to build upon the property, but ensure exactly what they were building. But Holmes, again, kept up his shady dealings by getting the building materials on credit, then rented bicycles, sold those to other people without returning them. He then would buy horses around Texas with phony collateral, turning around and selling those off as well. At this point, police were onto Holmes and found out Minnie was a missing person, and they started linking her to Holmes. But once he got wind of them snooping around, he bounced again in May of 1894. He was on his way to St. Louis, Missouri, and here he actually was arrested for the first time in his life. But
wow,
he was caught taking multiple mortgages and loans against the same property. That was it. After a month of securing bond money, he got out and took off to Philadelphia.
And then he's still married to Georgiana, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is she along for the ride?
Yeah, she's still kind of oblivious. In August, Petezel was able to hook up with him again. They decided to do another con. They thought, what if we do that con we did a long time ago? We'll fake Petezel's death, then replace the body with a cadaver. Again, right? September 1st, 1894. Holmes came over to Petezel's apartment in Philly, and the plan was for Petezel to pretend to be an inventor named B.F. Perry and to be killed and disfigured in a lab explosion.
Oh.
Yeah. Holmes found his friend getting drunk in his apartment. So Holmes just decided to give him more to drink and more and more. Holmes got him so drunk that the next steps he did slowly without a bat of an eye from Petezel. Holmes deliberately took out a rag and some chloroform and ended up killing his friend.
So no fraud necessary.
Nope. He then took out a flammable chemical and burned off his face and hair.
Oh my gosh.
Then placed a pipe out to make it look like he died in an accidental explosion while lighting his pipe.
Oh.
Now, note later, Holmes confessed Petezel was still alive when he used the chloroform, but autopsies revealed he was dead after. So he probably did set him on fire and then used the chloroform. It's messed up. Either way, he killed his friend.
Yeah, I mean, he has no issues with torturing animals.
No, he's going to torture these
he's going to torture people.
Yeah.
Oh.
Soon after, he and Georgiana took off to St. Louis to tell Petezel's family to bring them back to identify him and claim the insurance money. But when they arrived, Mrs. Petezel had already heard about her husband's death in the newspaper. She was super distraught at this, which this is funny. I wrote this in my notes. It reminds me of the Grinch. Holmes lies to her to calm her down and told her he was still alive, but that they had to fake Benjamin's death in order to all claim the insurance money. She needed to come back with them to Philly to identify the fake body of her husband to get the money, though.
We'll fix it up there.
Right?
And then we'll bring it back here.
Exactly.
Okay.
See?
Yeah,
Total
I
Grinch.
gotcha.
There are contradicting reports about this next piece of this crazy story. Okay. One source says wife Carrie Alice Canning was escorted around the northern United States while she allowed him custody to 3 of her 5 children as they traveled around with Holmes. 13-year-old Alice, 9-year-old Nellie, and 7-year-old Howard. In September that year, Alice made it to Philly, and she accompanied Holmes to the morgue to identify her father because either Carrie was really sick or she just wasn't there. But he used Alice, his little daughter.
Oh my gosh.
She ended up positively identifying her father as the body, which in turn paid out Holmes $7,200. You know how much that is today?
No, what?
$257,683.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Now, out of that money, guess how much Holmes sent back to Mrs. Petezel?
$2.
$500.
Oh, okay. So a little bit more than $2. That's
$500.
Still, that's like generous of him. Oh my gosh.
Which is roughly $17,894
I can't
today.
believe he used the baby to identify them.
Yep. He pocketed over $240,000 for murdering his friend. Then Mrs. Petezel was expecting her husband to come back out of hiding, right?
Right, yeah.
Devious Holmes claimed Benjamin was waiting in Indianapolis for his family to start a new life. So this is where it gets weird. On October 10th, Holmes brought son, Howard Patezel, 7 years old,
Uh-huh.
to a home in Indianapolis and cooked him up a meal laced with poison.
Oh.
Holmes then hacked up Howard's body, burning some on the stove and burying other parts in a nearby barn. Then a couple days later, Holmes convinced the two girls, Alice and Nellie, that their father was on the move again and had to meet them in Toronto. He also lied about Howard and said, oh, yeah, he's in the care of my cousin, Minnie Williams, and that he'd rejoin the family soon enough, which he wasn't wrong. But back in Philly, a single insurance investigator felt something was seriously off about the death of Benjamin Patezel. He was able to convince the president of the company to hire a detective from the Pinkerton Detective Agency to follow Holmes and see what was going on with him. Holmes didn't know about this, but he did feel a little heat to hurry with his current plan with the Patezels. Holmes told Mrs. Patezel to get to New York along with her baby, and she complied. Then somehow led Alice and Nellie to a rented home at 16 St. Vincent Street in Toronto. October 25th, 1894, he forces the girls into a large trunk and locks them inside. He then drilled a hole in the lid of the trunk and put one end of a hose through the hole, attaching the other end to a gas line. And ended up asphyxiating the two. He dug shallow graves in the cellar for them and burned their clothes in the furnace.
My heart. I don't
Yeah.
like it.
After he killed those innocent girls, where and what he did remains a mystery. It is believed he and Georgiana traveled all over Northern America and Canada.
He's still married to
Georgiana's
Georgiana.
still naive to what Holmes had been doing the last couple months, and they never stayed long in one place, but he was unaware of the Pinkerton detectives tracking him still. November 13th, somehow he turned up in Boston where he was going to settle down, or so he thought.
Right.
The Pinkerton agency got in touch with the Boston Police Department, and they were able to arrest Holmes on November 17th.
Huzzah.
But they first charged him with horse thievery from Texas. Because they'd had nothing else on him. They knew there was problems with him, but they couldn't nail it down.
Right.
So they had to interrogate him for the more sinister crimes. After questioning him about Minnie and Nanny Williams, the Patezels, and his building back in Chicago for weeks, Holmes produced lie after lie and spun so many different tales that the police's heads were spinning.
Yeah.
They knew he was slippery, but difficult to separate fact from fiction.
Right.
And no one could find any hard evidence of murder, but they knew he did some terrible things. Now, thankfully, July of 1895, Philadelphia City Detective Frank Geyer finally discovered Nellie and Alice Patezel's lifeless bodies in Toronto. Holmes now couldn't lie anymore about how they were hiding with their father.
Yep.
His response to them finding the bodies, well, I guess I'll hang for this.
So he finally is like, okay, I can't lie my way out of this one.
Yeah, this guy. October 1895, Holmes went on trial for the murder of Benjamin Patezel and found guilty. His sentence, death by hanging.
Yay.
Police did not pursue
not yay, but yay.
Police did not pursue charges for Alice and Nellie, which is sad, but knowing he was going to hang, I guess, was enough.
Yeah.
Holmes figured might as well get some more fame after the trial. He confessed to the Hearst newspaper company and claimed to have killed at least 27 people, and they paid him $7,500 for his confession. Why?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is horrible.
It's so bad, right? And you know that Holmes, by now, he completely fabricated his quote-unquote confession. And after giving the newspaper specific names of the people he killed, they found out a lot of those people were still living.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
At one point, he claimed he was possessed by Satan. During all of this, rumors kept spreading about Holmes to the point it got crazily out of hand and that he had actually killed hundreds of people in his murder castle. So that's what spread a lot. If you hear about H.H.Holmes, some people who don't know about him, they do think that he's killed hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people in the murder castle.
Yes, but he didn't.
Yeah. He killed enough, though. I mean, dude.
Oh, enough. Yeah. May 7th, 1896, Holmes was hanged at Moyamensing Prison in Philadelphia. Before the hanging, he requested his coffin to be lined with concrete and buried 10 feet deep in order to avoid grave robbers attempting to steal his body for dissection. Yes, because they would have. And during the hanging, Holmes' neck did not snap. Rather, he strangled to death slowly and twitched for over 15 minutes before being pronounced dead.
Wow. Oh my gosh, Nicole.
August of 1895, Holmes's murder castle was damaged by a fire in which they believe arsons doused it in gas. The building did survive that fire and remained in use until 1938 when it was torn down.
Was there a crying child in it?
Probably. Today, the land holds a post office.
Oh, gosh.
Lastly, one of Holmes's relatives made a claim that H.H. Holmes was really Jack the Ripper and had escaped his execution because he was that slippery. So in 2017, his body was exhumed and tested because they were like, he was so sure. But sure enough, he was in there. Eerily, his clothes and mustache were perfectly preserved because of the concrete lining.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So no, H.H. Holmes was not Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. No.
Lastly, as I mentioned, you can read a few books about him. Like I told you, Larson's Devil in the White City or Harold Schechter's The Shocking True Story of America's First Serial Killer. But I'm going to show Angela this cool newspaper clipping that they did a long time ago.
Wow.
This is the artist's renditions of all the people he murdered. Except Benjamin Petezel's not in there. I don't know why. They just put all that's the little boy. But
yeah. Oh, my heart.
Yeah.
My heart. Dude, this guy, man.
Yeah, so shady.
Just
Benjamin
insane
Petezel is right there. Sorry.
Oh, he is. Okay. This is like, he's just an insane con man that just wouldn't stop at anything. He didn't stop at anything.
He was so selfish to the point where he didn't, no care for whatsoever.
No regard.
Anybody.
There was no humanity in him. So I understand why he feels like he was possessed by the devil.
Right.
There's no humanity in him.
No.
He had no care for... I wonder what his wives, because plural, there were 3 of them alive
at one point.
when he hanged.
Yep.
And then he killed two other
2 girls, 2 ladies, 4 children.
Mm-hmm.
4 children.
That's so upsetting. I'm so glad he was caught. I mean, he was a slippery little
somehow
weasel.
He got away with so much. It was crazy.
Yeah, because he didn't take responsibility for any of the actions on purpose. Like he designed, all of his cons were designed so that other people would take the fall. Mm-hmm. And that is so disgusting.
Right? And that's H.H. Holmes.
Oh, man. Well, I crocheted my way through that one, guys, because anytime we do a true crime, I've got to crochet my way through it.
Yep, I know you do.
Oh, man, if you guys enjoyed this one, or if you just want to reach out and say hi, you can always email us at theominoussstitch@gmail.com or jump on any of our social media platforms. We are on all the things, and drop by and say hi. We want to talk to you. We love connecting with our audience. We love connecting with our stitchers. If you want notes on this and see that really interesting rendition of the drawing. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Victims.
Of all the victims. Yeah. You can jump over to podbean.com. That is where we host our little podcast for you. I couldn't think of the word podcast. My brain. I'm like, oh, there's so much stuff.
So much going on.
So much stuff. So you can jump over to podbean.com, look up the Ominous Stitch podcast, and see this week's show notes or any other previous shows. And there's also a little button you can click that says Become a Patron. If you're on your phone, it's a little red button that you click. Become a patron today. We love our patrons. We cannot do this without your support, so we appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
We love our patrons. Should we do a shout out? I feel like we haven't said everybody's names in a long time. So let's go. Brittany.
Kate.
Avery.
Michael.
Janet. Becca.
It's like, which other one? We got them all now.
We got them all. All right. Well, we love you, patrons.
Yes,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much for supporting us.
Yeah.
And we still have one more thing to do.
One more thing.
I have some words about this movie.
Ooh,
okay.
I'm excited.
Are you excited?
Yeah.
It's movie time.
This week's movie review, Fallen, released in 1998. IMDb rating of 7 stars. And the synopsis: homicide detective John Hobbs witnessed the execution of serial killer Edgar Reese. Soon after the execution, the killings start again, and they are very similar to Reese's style.
Okay. I love this movie, and this is why.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
Is it the saxophone?
Okay. How did you pick that out of my brain? How did you pick that out of my brain? That is a point I wanted to bring up, but that wasn't the main point that I was going to say right now. But how come, and I think this is why you hate jazz sax.
Probably.
Every time in the 90s,
Yes.
every time there's like a sexy scene
Sexy or
people,
crime or...
yeah, crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's if it's a cop drama,
Yes.
or if there's like a love interest thing, there's always that
A
sax.
saxophone.
Yeah, the jazz sax, and I'm like, this is why she hates jazz saxophone. I literally thought that while I was watching it, and I was like, I'm so gonna bring it up.
Every time where it was this like serious thinking moment, it was saxophone. I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad.
I was like,
but-
she's good. This is why she hates jazz sax. That's seriously it. That's exactly what I was
Oh
thinking.
my
But
gosh.
the
But-
point that I was going to
Okay.
bring up is because this is what demons do. They are not people, but they can possess people. And so therefore you should not kill them. Frailty.
It goes in a full circle, everybody. But yeah, it is an interesting where when he, okay, yeah, she just spoiled it, but I'm sure you've seen it, or if you haven't seen it,
I
go
mean,
watch it.
it happens right at the beginning. I'm like,
Yes.
you catch on really quick.
You catch on quick. So yeah, the premise and the acting, I'm so glad they have all these actors in it. But yeah, the premise is there's a demon, Azazel, who is able to transfer from person to person by just touching them. Which is insane. But when they leave the person, they don't even remember that moment or
Yeah,
moments.
the person doesn't know
No.
that they were possessed at all. Yeah.
Completely blindsided by it.
Right. And that's demons cannot be people. They can inhabit people,
They can inhabit people
but they are not people. So therefore you should not kill people that are possessed by demons.
because they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
That's
so
what- okay.
that's my thing with frailty. And that was my argument when we talked about that a long time ago. This movie proves my point.
You're funny. So yeah, this movie is so good. Denzel Washington at this time was making every single movie.
Yes.
And to be fair, he deserved it because he's such an amazing actor. So he is John Hobbs and he's awesome. There's Donald Sutherland. There's
John Goodman.
John Goodman. And then I don't know her actress's name is Embeth Davids, but do you recognize her from Matilda?
Oh.
She's the teacher.
Oh, yeah.
She's the sweet teacher.
Yes.
So that was her.
Okay.
James Gandolfini's in it.
Yes.
Like, there's so many good actors at this moment, and they just do such a good job with it. And it's just so amazing that they come with this story and they weave it to the point where it's like a repetitive story in this demon and cops and people on Earth being, fighting these demons. Oh, it's so fun. I love this movie. And yeah, besides the jazz saxophone, it's just the cinematography and everything is really good on it too.
Yeah, it's a great story, and you get to see how the demon tortures the people that it's hunting. So it's torturing Hobbs big time.
Right.
And it's
only because when you notice them and they're good, when you're a good person and you notice them, they're going to torture you and kill you and your family.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
crazy.
They're gonna come after you because they don't like people.
Yeah.
because
And they
God
want-
favored them God favored people
Instead
over
of
them.
angels, yeah, the
and so
fallen
that's why
angels.
the angels fell. And
Yeah. So good. I love this movie and I totally forgot about it until it was like it popped up on something. I was like, this ties into our episode really well, right? So yeah, I'm so glad we got to rewatch this movie.
Yeah, I have to give this the opposite stitches from Frailty because this movie proves my point to a T.
It's like,
So-
this is Angela's movie.
Yeah, so even though I don't think it's really 25 stitches. I'm going to give it 25 since I gave the other one negative 25.
You have to balance it out.
I have to balance it out.
You're so cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I'd give it an 8.5. This is such a good movie, maybe even a 9, just because I could probably watch this over and over again. You know what happens? I mean, like once it's like Sixth Sense, where it's like once you find out what happens, it's like, oh, the magic kind of is a little bit gone, but still, like.
Well, no, the way that it messes with him, and then the
Yes.
whole thing in the ending, though.
Yes,
there
that's
is
what
a
I'm
twist
saying.
at the ending.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying it's like Sixth Sense, where it's like, you know what happens and you're like, dang it. Like, now
Yeah.
you know, so you're expecting it. But at least.
Oh, okay. So once you've seen it and you
Yes.
rewatch it, it ruins the
A little bit of the
gotcha,
magic.
I gotcha.
Exactly. But it's still so good. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yes.
I'll still watch this over and over again
Yes.
because, yeah, I just love the storytelling and I love just the whole everything. I love it. I love it.
It's so good.
So yeah, there's my stitches. And yes, I could stitch to this, but sometimes I'd have to watch it because some things that I'd miss. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
shoot. You probably want to watch that part.
Yeah. No, I was definitely stitching on this. I mean, I was, I had a lot of crochet to catch
He was like, I
on.
got to get through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yay.
But yeah, great movie. I'm so glad we watched it.
Yay. Well, this was another challenging episode for me, but I'm so glad that we went through it. I didn't know anything about him. So this is like,
That's what I love that.
yeah.
True crime
very
is tough for
intense.
us, but it's kind
Yeah.
of interesting to revisit, and everybody else likes true crime.
I know.
It's like,
I love our
it.
stitchers.
Yeah.
We do this for you. Nicole tortures me with the true crime just for you guys. But anyway, so we've come to another amazing end of another amazing episode.
Yes,
Amazing.
amazing.
Woo, amazing. All right. Until next time, we will see you, stitchers.
See ya, Stitchers.